Thank you so much. I am beyond honored to sit with both of you and moderate this discussion today. T, and I will say this, you know that you're powerful when you're known by just one letter, T. A lot of us have 2 names, 3 names sometimes, but T and Paul, I am so honored to speak with both of you. We were speaking in the back room, and I was just kind of throwing out a few topics, and I have to tell you, the excitement, the passion that came out just as we were chatting over coffee, these two are incredibly passionate about what they do and about what we're about to talk about. So you're all in for a treat. So I hope you have a lot of note-taking supplies ready for you. So I'm just gonna jump right in. You know, we talk about, Mark certainly outlined very well the success, but what I want to dive into today is the story. I want to know the story behind both of you, and I think it's appropriate this is called Ascend 2020 because there is always a climb, right? Like there's always an ascension, a path to get to where you are. So T, I'll start with you. The first thing that I want to know is just kind of talk about your journey to get into the financial services industry, and specifically your passion for making sure that people are financially sound. Right? And this is something that comes from a personal experience, a personal passion for us.
Well, first, it's so great to be here at Morehouse. It's like gold here right now. But, you know, my father would always say, people see your glory, but they don't know your story.
Amen.
And so my passion for financial health is personal. You know, I go back to my childhood, and my father worked in a warehouse for Xerox. My mother's a teacher. And we grew up in New Jersey before we moved to Texas. And I know what it's like to open up your fridge and just see baking soda and don't know how you're gonna have a meal. You know, I know what it's like to have a car and not have a car. I know what it's like to have your parents enroll you in karate lessons and piano lessons, but not have the money to keep you in karate lessons and piano lessons. And I also know what it's like to pack up everything that you own and drive from New Jersey to Texas with your mom and your dad and your 2 brothers and everything that you own, and you start your life sitting on crates. But I think a real moment that really fueled my passion was when I graduated from college, and I'm talking to my father about retirement. And I'm like, Dad, you know, how's your 401k, your investments? And after 40 plus years working, he didn't have a 401k. All he had was his pension, and that was not enough. And to be the daughter, to tell your father, this is not going to allow you to retire. And in his late 40s, having to immediately max out and accelerate to be able to have a shot to retire. And the tragedy of it all is that the 401k was for him at work. He just didn't know, and he didn't think it was for him. And so when I think about financial health, I think about Otis Brown. And then in terms of my journey, Inroads was my disruptor. You know, Inroads is a program for minorities, and without Inroads, I would not be here. And so I think it's important to have programs that can give you the art of possibility and help you know what it means to reach for the moon. And that's what my father taught me, because even if you miss, you'll be among the stars. So that was my beginning in terms of my ascension. It started with Inroads, and it started with some 2 dope parents that I learned a lot about money by not having.
I love that. I love 2 dope parents too. And, you know, and we'll talk about the importance of programs a little bit later in this talk. Paul, I want to bring you in because I think one thing that when you think about entrepreneurship, you look at entrepreneurs, you see the success stories, right? But one thing to kind of keep in mind, it can be a scary plunge. You know, society teaches you that, hey, if you do what you do, you go to work, you show up, do what you need to do, that direct deposit's going to hit your account every 2 weeks, and there's security in that. Entrepreneurship is a little different, right? So when you're out there and you're making it happen on your own, it can be just you. Talk to me about that moment, way back, early entrepreneur stages, Paul. What was it that made you take that leap into entrepreneurship and decide this is the space that I need to be in?
So for me, it was really, I didn't even know the word entrepreneurship, right? I knew, you know, similar when you mentioned the fridge with baking powder, baking soda, I was, yeah, I can remember that fridge. We had a green one, And you would open it up, and me and my sister would like eat some eggs and rice, and that would be dinner, right? I knew I grew up, I wanted to be great at something, and I didn't even yet know what the something was. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I landed, here at Morehouse in, 1995. And there used to be this t-shirt that went around that said, lazy but talented. Remember this Nike shirt? And like people used to brag about that fact. They're like, oh, I'm talented so I don't have to work hard. But I got here and I started getting my butt kicked in classes. And I remember calling my parents saying, hey, at the end of the summer when you come get me, you may need to come in the truck. Because, true story, I think I may have to move back home. I don't think this is going to work out. Right? Because I would come in the dorm and my roommate would be sitting there with the book open. I was like, what do we have a test tonight? He's like, no. I was like, well, in the morning? He's like, no. I was like, what are you doing? I didn't understand the basic concept of like reading to accumulate knowledge, to like have information stored, to like get smarter, and I only knew about cramming on the bus right before class. So I really had to learn to like be great or even have the dedication to try to be excellent. And then also, I think, learn here along the way kind of to have this high aim. And from there, I stumbled into entrepreneurship. I went out seeking to kind of be great at something and found a problem to solve that no one else had solved. And for me, that turned into business success. And then I realized that there was like a process to that, but it didn't start off with chasing the dollar. It started off with chasing greatness.
I love that, chasing greatness. That's a quotable to write down. And I think another piece of that too that we talked about is the fact that so many people have ideas. Right? Ideas are abundant. Good ideas are certainly more valuable, but how do you take something from a good idea to something that is sustainable, something that actually lasts? I loved the panel right before us, and as Tanya said, sometimes it's, hey, 2 guys and a laptop, right? So how do you go from that 2 guys over a laptop to a sustainable company where you have infrastructure, where you have revenue coming in? What's the tipping point there? And I know that's not an easy question to answer, but I think that's the question that a lot of entrepreneurs have.
Yeah, I think it starts off with being able to zoom out and see the forest and understand what's happening in the world and what the world will look like 3 years from now, 5 years from now. While we're busy trying to find food to eat this week and dollars to pay the bills this week, need to at the same time zoom out and say, okay, 5 years from now, where will the world be? And then a little bit of how we play chess, not checkers, to get there. I teach a lot of entrepreneurs, let's think about how to get a home run, but one base at a time, right? You can't just kind of jump up and say, I scored. You have to go to base 1 and base 2. So what does your company look like over those phases? So you can dream big, but then also kind of attach it to a plan. So I think that's what a lot of people do. You get so caught up in the minutia of day to day that you have a decent small business, but you never actually gave yourself a chance to go build something meaningful and long-lasting. And sometimes people will think it's easier to build a small business than a large business. I think the opposite is sometimes true, because the greatest folks in the world don't want to work on your little bitty idea. Right? So you're trying to recruit great talent. They don't want to come work on your little bitty idea. Financial institutions don't want to invest in your little bitty idea. So oftentimes it's actually easier to swing big, to aim larger. And so that's one thing we try to teach folks, but dream big, but then put the discipline in to get there one step at a time.
Sure. And that can be scary, that notion of dreaming big, right? And so we'll get to that a little bit later, because I want to talk about what is it that, both of you as you're climbing, that keeps you encouraged? Because this journey is difficult, it can be hard. So let's talk about some of those struggles. Having the 2 of you here in the successful seats where you sit, I think one of the most valuable things to hear would be, really, what are some times where it was hard for you? And so T, I'll bring you back into the conversation. There was, if you all haven't read this article, there was a fantastic New York Times piece recently done on Tashonda. Google it if you haven't seen it. Back in April, and I loved one of the quotes that you said, which I think is so, so true for so many minorities, so many women. You said, you need to be 2 times better. You need to be so good that you can't be denied, right? So even with that work ethic, even with that mindset to move you forward, I'm sure there were times where you hit some barriers in your career. So if you could just kind of talk to us about some of those barriers, ones that stand out to you, and how you overcame those.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, one of my learnings is just to know that I'm enough. And I think sometimes when you're on this journey, we're in our heads and we don't feel validated, we don't feel like we have something to contribute because maybe you're in a room and it's intimidating and no one looks like you, no one may be thinking the types of ideas that you have. And so that was an early lesson. In terms of moments, I will say when I was the CEO of Auto, and people ask you what you like, it's about building rapport. And they were like, T, you like NASCAR? And I didn't watch NASCAR. And so you have that moment in your head, do you fake it till you make it? Or do you keep it 100? And in that moment, I said, I don't watch NASCAR, but I love The Voice and I like Empire. And I'm talking to these executives in auto, and my point is, in the moments in my learning of when I was trying to be someone that I was not, the fact that I showed up as Tashonda, I ended up leaving the auto business, becoming the CEO of the consumer bank, with relationships with people that I otherwise would think I had nothing in common, because the power of knowing you're enough is the understanding the power of connection. And you can't connect if you're not authentically you. And so that was a major lesson. I would say the second lesson for me was the ability to take risk when I moved from Texas to California for a job. And so many times, especially women, in my head, I was like, well, my husband's in Texas. I wasn't dating anybody. All my friends are here. I was just giving myself all the reasons not to go, when the reality is I was afraid. But I took that risk. And I will tell you that moving away was one of the best things for me, because I got to discover who I really was. And I'm still learning that. And I would say the last piece that I would share with you all, which was a real moment, is I was 6 months pregnant with my second child, and my dream in life was to run a P&L. Like 5 people, and I'm running that P&L. So I was like, there's not enough women, definitely not enough people of color. And my boss said, you promoted me to run the Northeast region P&L and mortgage. And I was like, I'm pregnant, right? You know it's gonna be a Schedule C. You know I'm gonna be out. I was giving him every reason to tell me, oh, well then maybe we'll keep you where you were. So sometimes you talk yourself out of an opportunity instead of saying I am enough. And in that moment, to be able to know that I can deliver my second child, take the time that I needed, and come back, and I was not denied that opportunity, I think was a real accelerator moment for me, in saying that the things that matter most for me, I can still accomplish and create space to continue to climb the corporate ladder and do it on my terms. And so those are real moments when I think about my ascension.
Those are powerful moments too, absolutely. And I love, one thing that I wanted to focus in on, you talked about the concept of taking risk, right? And how important it is to take risk, because that's when you really gain. You can kind of stay on the same path, and you'll usually maintain and be safe, but it's when you step outside of that path, when you take risks, that's when you really usually grow. This is for both of you, because obviously your path is almost littered with risks, right, that have been taken. How do you know when to take that risk? And what gives you the confidence to jump out and to kind of keep listening to that voice inside your head, even in the face of people saying, no, this isn't a good idea, or oh, you need to go back and get this job? What is it that you surround yourself with, think about internally, that keep you going when you decide to take those risks?
I do it every day, every week. It's some wacky idea, right? But so many of the great companies of the day started off sounding like a wacky idea. Right? If someone would come to you and said, yeah, I have this company where we're going to allow people to pay to sleep on other people's beds. You wouldn't probably have envisioned Airbnb, or you're going to have strangers come at your door and you're going to get in the backseat of their car and they're going to take you to work. And so many things that are that alter society and alter business originally sound trivial or sound like a toy. And so being able to zoom out and imagine, wait, what if this works? It's so easy to look at an idea and think about reasons that it can't fail. Like, that's easy, like that's amateur hour. But so many people think like that's the art, like that's the trick. Oh, let me come shoot your idea down and show you how smart I am. Like, anyone can do that. The art is imagining what happens if it's successful, and then figuring out how to go mitigate those risks to make success come true. And so that's the difficult part, is imagining it and then deciding, like, is this the right team? Is this the right time? Right? And oftentimes what folks do when they're trying to go chase a big idea is they treat it like Little League. Right? In Little League, you go down the street and you get all your friends. And you're like, hey, let's go play a game. Business is like the Olympics, right? Where everybody in the world wants that gold medal. Every country is going to send their best athlete to come beat you. And so if you're going to go after a big idea, you can't go down the block and just get your friends. You have to go recruit the best people to go to battle with you. Right? I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, right? You have to go around to all the kings and get the best because everyone's going to come after you. And so that's what I often see is just having the vision to go dream big, but then putting together the right team to actually go chase it.
And I was going to ask you that. We're talking about it's all about the team leadership, right? It's one thing to take a risk when it's you. You're like, okay, everybody come follow me. When you already have a team behind you, when you're already in a high position, that can make it even more risky, right? So talk about the concept of leadership when you're talking about thinking outside of the box and taking risks.
I mean, it's all about leadership. And let's be clear, whether you're an entrepreneur or in corporate America, you are taking risks. You have to think out the box. You have to have that discipline. And like you said, you have to surround yourself with really great people. And for me, it starts with character. We can be intellectually curious. We can be super smart, but who are you? Because when it gets tough, you want to make sure that you can all go to the same base camp, which has to be that strong character and that strong mindset, especially when you're at a financial institution and protecting and helping people with their money. But I also think when you think about your team, and I'm so fortunate to have a super awesome tribe, I try to look for people that are not like me. I'm good with Tashonda. I want majors and minors. Who's majoring in something that's not minor? I want to surround myself with a team that on any topic, there's someone in that room that's smarter than me. Because that drives the intellectual curiosity, that drives the challenging of thought so that you can get to that big idea, but then have a team around you that can help you piece it all together to be able to make a cosmic shift, in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. So I think team is important. And then as a CEO, when you manage a large team, one of the things that I pride myself on is how do I give my power away every single day? Because the more I give my power away, the more that I create space for me to get better. And I think sometimes as you may grow your business, or sometimes as you're looking to define your own success, it's what you're hoarding versus what you're releasing. And having that level of confidence to know the more I empower others that are common with that character, that are super, intellectually curious and smart, the more iron sharpens iron. The more I'm able to refine my skills, the more I'm able to create that space to think even more and be even forward-thinking and aggressive in my thoughts, because I know that I have a team that is challenging me every single day. And I think that's really important when you think about growth.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to piggyback off of that and use that as a springboard to talk about resources, right? Because yes, you can have a lot of drive, you can take risks, you can have big ideas, but at the end of the day, you need resources to help grow. You need resources to help expand, which I think is a good segue into why exactly you're here in Atlanta with us, right? Because obviously Atlanta's a great city. We're glad to have you. But JP Morgan Chase has made a strong commitment to helping provide these necessary resources for minority entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs here in the city. So talk to me about the increase and the continuation of that today, and why the city of Atlanta as well.
Well, it's great to be here in Atlanta, and when you just look at the stats, it has some of the most premier colleges and universities. It has a booming tech center. It has, so much opportunity. But then you also look, it's 51%, I think, African American here in Atlanta. It's the second most populated city for blacks, next to, I think, New York City. So it's a major economy and a major opportunity. But you also know that there's two narratives. You know that income inequality is real. You know that access to capital is real. And you know that talent is created equally, but opportunity is not. And so we know that we can do more. And that's why we're here. And a couple of pieces I just want to highlight tactically and specifically, because I want to make sure we always have a call to action. So here's what we're up to. We are announcing that we're adding more branches in Atlanta. We're gonna add 40 more branches in Atlanta and a few in Savannah and Athens over the next 3 years. That's 200 more people. But here's the point. When we add branches to a community, that leaves space for that small business to be right here. That leaves opportunity for us not just to hire the people inside our four walls, but the people that do the landscaping, the people that make sure that the ATM is replenished. So there's a multiplier effect when you have a long-term tenant that's anchored. For all of you entrepreneurs, I want you to know, especially those of you that are in the space of ideas in the community, that the branch is no longer a one-size-fits-all. We're open to bringing your ideas inside our community, inside our branch. So if you want to test a concept, maybe you test it inside our four walls and get consumer feedback before you take the plunge to buy that real estate. So I would love for us to be able to ideate the art of possibility because it's about being in the market. The second piece I just have to say, it's like flying an airplane. When you're on an airplane, they tell you to buckle up first before you help others. As you think about being an entrepreneur, or as you think about climbing the corporate ladder, are you financially healthy? Because like you said, we're looking at you, especially the small business owner, we're looking at your credit score. We're looking at who you are, not necessarily your idea. And so I do think it's important that we're providing access to the information around how do you keep it 700 plus. Talk to you about how do you have that savings and liquidity so that as you are a small business and wanting to grow, you have that cash on hand to be able to leverage so that you can get more. And so the point here is being in Atlanta, it's about working with entrepreneurs. It's about access to capital. It's about making sure that we can help people buy the homes, buy the cars, but also invest, understand the power of saving. Bottom line is we're here to be a part of the community. We've been here, but we know that there's so much we can do, and that's across the entire socioeconomic spectrum. That's low to moderate income, all the way to the affluent. And so we're open and we're ready to go to work and to hear more from you on what we can do to bring more financial health and wealth to the minority community and the overall Atlanta community at large.
Atlanta is so fortunate to have you here. I think that deserves a round of applause. Thank you. And that financially fit piece you talked about too is so crucial, especially when you are starting a business. And Paul, obviously you know that firsthand. So I want to get you to talk about that. The other thing I wanted to ask you as we talk about resources, if you look back kind of in your earliest days, if you could almost identify one or two things that you wish you had had. If you looked and said, oh man, if only I'd known about this, or if only I'd had that in my corner, that would have helped me so much more. That would have helped me expand, that would have helped me avoid these pitfalls. Because there are a lot of people, I kind of think it's a full circle moment to do this here at Morehouse, because I'm sure we have certainly students here in the audience, we've got young entrepreneurs here in the audience, you probably sat in some seats like this in your days. So even looking back or kind of talking to those who were in those early stages of entrepreneurship, what are some things that you wish you had looked at and been able to have?
Certainly. There's the students in the audience. There's President Campbell of Spelman College is here, and you have to acknowledge her and the great work that's happening right here across the street at Spelman around innovation, Morehouse around innovation entrepreneurship. And I think when you think about building black pathways and building black wealth globally, you can't do that without zooming into Atlanta. And you can't talk about black wealth in Atlanta without zooming into Morehouse and Spelman. And if you look at the opportunity that software and technology enables to make wealth in a totally different way that this country hasn't seen in centuries, right? Without inheriting land, without inheriting like steel or all, to come from a raw idea to coding a computer to do it for you and creating wealth. We just have this opportunity right here in these couple acres where we're standing right now to really lead the globe in that. And that's just such a special thing, a special time, responsibility for being alive right now and being in this particular place. And I hope that advice for entrepreneurs, that everyone understands like how special this time is and how unique this opportunity is that's in front of us, right? 50 years ago, 80 years ago, have been much tougher to have this dialogue about how to close this gap in wealth. right now when you can start with creativity, something we're really good at, right? And tie it with execution, also known as hustle, something we're really good at. And you can go create value and wealth out of thin air. The only times we've seen that before has been around music and arts, right? Where you can go from your mind to something of wealth. And so the urgency that is required at this time, I think is the thing to walk away with as an entrepreneur right now. Like, this moment won't necessarily be here 10 years from now, right? This moment won't necessarily be, it's right now. And there's a desire from large organizations and others around the world to open that door. We have to get excellent and then go walk through that door. And so too many times folks want to show up without doing the work first. And I think, you know, if you compare it to someone who plays basketball for a living, they put the hours in the gym in before they go play the game. Or they put the hours in the studio in before they go to the radio. And so we have to first sharpen our skills and get great and get excellent, and then go attack this opportunity that's in front of us right now.
I think on that point, if I could just piggyback, I think, you know, one of the things that we were talking about is how do we help prepare everyone for the answers to the test. And so when you think about this ecosystem that's here, there's an opportunity to say, okay, JP Morgan Chase, you know how to take Facebook public. Bring that information to me now. You know how to do pitches like you talked about and what you all are doing. Let's talk about it now so that you can dream but be prepared as you're making those singles and making those ways to the home run to have the information so that as you grow, you're ready and you know what that looks like and that you're prepared. I think that's a really, really important point. And then when we think about the outcome, I do just want to anchor on this stat. The median net worth of Black men and Black women is $200 to $300. Compared to single white men and women, $15,000 to $28,000. My point here is as we have all of this amazing talent, how do we make sure that the outcome of all of this intellectual capital, creativity, power, how do we make sure that it's built on a foundation that's sustainable so that we can build wealth, generational wealth, and give back to our communities to strengthen them? I think that is very important, and I think that's why having this diverse group of people here today is an ecosystem that we should be tapping into collectively so that we can make sure that the sustainability is there for the long haul. And that's what we're excited about doing our part to help facilitate.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much. I think that the ecosystem, I love that phrase. I love hearing that. One of my favorite quotes when I kind of think about this, and it actually comes from my husband, one of my favorite people, Jay Bailey, who's in the room. He said it is so important to make your friends before you meet them, right? And so we've talked about resources, we've talked about ideas, we've talked about stepping out, but just the importance of creating and maintaining that ecosystem around you is another important step to success, right? So Paul, Tashana, thank you both so much. I'm getting the wrap up sign, otherwise I would keep going for a long time, but thank you both so much. Please give them a